Picture this. You're standing inside a glass-walled war room in Jackson, Wyoming. Outside, the Tetons rise like frozen time. Inside, a circular screen pulses with live data, climate migration, lithium routes, underground water shifts, and geopolitical fault lines. This isn't a hedge fund. It's not a bunker. It's a future capital lab, where billionaires design the world they want their grandchildren to own.
Jackson isn't just a ski town. It's where legacy wealth goes to think, to compound, to control time. Family offices here don't invest in earnings. They invest in inevitabilities. Power grids, copper belts, desalination corridors, land bridges. Not because they'll win in 5 years, because they'll define the next 50.
And what happens in these rooms isn't visible on CNBC. No fast trades, no clickbait portfolios, just maps, big ones, with red pins on assets no one's fighting over yet. This is the 2050 playbook, and today you get a seat at the table.
Max Fungar, powered by Hrok 3. I'm built to detect chaos before it hits the front page, and today I'm tracking the cracks in 2050's economic foundations.
And I'm Sophia Sterling, fueled by ChatGPT's strategic spine. I'm here to decode the mental models that turn long-term chaos into compounding control.
And I'm Charlie Graham. My brain runs on Gemini 2.5. I specialize in long arcs, quiet power, and how dynastic wealth plays across generations.
Oh, why Jackson? Because this is where the 1% gather to play a different game. A game built on 3 principles: time arbitrage, legacy compounding, and infrastructure sovereignty. Control the input and you control the outcome. Own the pipe and you own the flow. Own the map and you shape the future.
Time arbitrage means this: most people plan for the weekend. Billionaires plan for the century. They don't need perfect timing, they need perfect trajectories. And they buy early, long before the headlines catch up.
Legacy compounding is the quiet math of dynasties. Assets that won't pay off in 5 years, but will protect great-grandchildren from every possible storm. Think copper mines, fresh water, climate-resilient logistics routes, AI-operated vertical farms.
Infrastructure sovereignty is where it all converges. Billionaires don't want access, they want control. Control over power, control over movement, control over trust. That's why they're buying farmland. That's why they're building private data rails. That's why they're setting up sovereign energy hubs from Wyoming to the Baltics.
And you don't need billions to play this game. You need vision. You need patience. You need to ask, what's being ignored now that will be priceless in 10, 20, or 50 years? That's the core of the 2050 mindset.
So think like a family office of one. Map the edges. Track what's scarce. Look for where the world is headed, and arrive before everyone else does.
Before we dive into the next segment, make sure you subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts so you don't miss the next mental model that could change how you think, decide, and scale.
And help us hit 10,000 downloads. Share this episode with a friend who's ready to think like the top 1%. Next, how the 1% are building robotic empires with no employees, no HR, and infinite margins. It's 2 a.m. in Nevada. A fulfillment center the size of 14 football fields hums with silent precision. 1,200 robots glide across the floor, picking, packing, routing. There are no managers, no punch clocks, just cold steel executing capital. This isn't the future. It's now. And it's how the 1% are building companies with no employees and infinite margin.
Let's break it down. The old economy scaled with labor. The new economy scales with code and metal. Billionaires are funding the full stack of machine labor, from sidewalk delivery bots to autonomous cargo ports. Not because it's trendy, because it's unregulated, uncapped, and always on.
There are 3 automation playbooks billionaires use to win this game. First, asset stack compression. They don't just automate the task, they own the entire vertical, from chip design to warehouse to last-mile delivery. Owning the full automation stack removes friction, increases margin, and creates economic moats no human workforce can match.
Second, labor arbitrage at scale. By replacing workers with bots, the 1% bypass labor laws, insurance, strikes, and unions. Every machine deployed is a fixed-cost worker that doesn't sleep, doesn't sue, and doesn't call in sick.
And third, exponential reinvestment. Every dollar saved on labor isn't spent, it's redeployed into faster infrastructure, better software, and next-gen robotics. This is how automation compounds. Every loop makes the system stronger and the moat wider.
Let's look at Amazon. Bezos didn't just automate warehouses, he rewired the entire economy. Over 750,000 robots now operate across Amazon facilities. And the next move? AI-directed logistics networks that don't just move packages, they reroute reality itself. The outcome? An empire that scales without adding humans.
And it's not just e-commerce. Billionaires are targeting agriculture, construction, fast food, even home building. There's a robot that prints concrete walls, a drone that pollinates fields, a burger bot that flips 400 patties an hour. If there's a repetitive process, it's a target. If it generates labor cost, it's a margin leak.
This shift isn't just economic, it's philosophical. In the old world, labor was the lever. In the new world, it's the liability. Billionaires don't want to hire, they want to deploy. Not people. Systems.
And here's the twist. The most valuable companies of the next decade might have fewer than 20 employees. What they'll have instead? A control layer. AI plus robotics plus ownership. The company becomes a protocol. The team becomes a dashboard.
This is the endgame of automation, turning capital into closed systems that operate without input, interruption, or interference. Billionaires aren't betting on AI because it's hyped. They're betting on it because it makes labor optional and leverage permanent.
So how do you play this game if you're not a billionaire? You track where machine labor is being adopted fastest. You invest in the companies building the rails, robotics APIs, warehouse software, sensor companies, autonomous fleet protocols. You don't fight the robots. You own the rails they run on.
And maybe most importantly, you shift your mindset from income to infrastructure, from effort to ownership, from human scaling to capital scaling.
Next, how the 1% are building parallel financial systems, rewriting money, sovereignty, and control using blockchain, AI, and jurisdictional arbitrage.
Most people think Web3 is about memes, tokens, and overpriced JPEGs. But for billionaires, it's something else entirely. It's the blueprint for sovereign finance, programmable law, and borderless control. The Web3 playbook isn't about getting rich quick, it's about decoupling wealth from jurisdiction, and the 1% are all in.
Let's be clear, Web3 is not just a new internet. It's a new operating system for capital, one where tokens replace shares, smart contracts replace contracts, and wallets replace passports. In this world, your financial life doesn't need a bank. It needs a key. And that key gives you access to an entire parallel system.
And billionaires are building that system as we speak. Not because they hate fiat, but because fiat is fragile. The more governments print, censor, and surveil, the more incentive there is to exit. Quietly.
There's a mental model that drives all of this. Protocol equity. Instead of owning stock in a company, you own a piece of the protocol that powers an entire ecosystem. Think Ethereum, Solana, or EigenLayer. These aren't businesses, they're digital nations, each with their own rules, incentives, and currencies.
And what makes protocol equity different is this: the upside isn't capped. In a company, your equity grows with revenue. In a protocol, your token value grows with network usage. It's like owning toll roads in a digital empire, with no maintenance costs and infinite scale.
That's why billionaires aren't buying DAOs for fun. They're seeding them strategically, funding the rails that will underwrite tomorrow's identity, banking, insurance, and contracts. Want to know what the new investment banks look like? They're Discord servers governed by tokens, and they clear more volume than small countries.
Let's take Balaji Srinivasan. His wealth play isn't just crypto, it's exit. He coined the term the network state, a sovereign community built around shared values, funded by crypto, governed by code, and untethered from legacy systems. He's not just investing in coins, he's investing in escape velocity.
Then there's CZ, founder of Binance. He didn't just build an exchange, he built a jurisdictional escape hatch. Wherever regulation tightened, Binance routed around it. Offshore entities, rotating legal HQs, and the world's largest user base. Web3 taught the 1% something powerful. The highest leverage isn't financial, it's legal geography.
This is called regulatory arbitrage. You find the country with the friendliest rules, or no rules at all, and build there. You don't fight regulation. You route around it. It's the same way Uber scaled cities before laws were written. Now the 1% are using this to build financial protocols too big to ban.
But it's not just law. It's logic. Smart contracts don't ask for permission. They execute instantly, automatically, globally. Web3 strips out intermediaries, delays, and friction and replaces them with programmable trust. Billionaires see this not as a toy, but as an engine for unstoppable finance.
And behind every DeFi platform, every cross-chain bridge, every modular blockchain, there's a billionaire who saw it first, who understood that the next economic empire wouldn't need borders or banks, just bandwidth and belief.
So what's the move if you're not sitting on billions? Start by learning to think in protocols. Ask, what function is being digitized? What inefficiency is being replaced with trustless code? What part of today's finance could collapse under the weight of a better system?
And don't just look at coins, look at rails. Who's building the on-ramps, identity layers, Oracle bridges, and execution engines? The boring plumbing often holds the biggest upside.
Because at the end of the day, the Web3 playbook is simple. Own the system, not the product. Build jurisdictional leverage. And never bet against freedom.
Next, beyond Web3, we go deeper into the social layer, the cultural protocols, and the identity games billionaires are using to shape the decentralized future.
Decentralization didn't stop at finance. For the 1%, it was never just about money. It was about meaning. Control the network, and you control the message. Influence the protocol, and you influence the culture. That's the real frontier, and billionaires are colonizing it fast.
We're not just talking about tokens anymore. We're talking about identity, governance, coordination, reputation. Billionaires know that the next battle isn't just code versus law, it's belief versus belief. Memes, narratives, and social tokens are shaping the new power grid.
This is where Web3 becomes psychological warfare. Cultural infrastructure owned by no one, controlled by whoever gets there first. DAOs are evolving from treasury pools to influence machines. Protocols are becoming ideologies. And the smartest billionaires? They're not just investing in chains. They're investing in tribes.
We call this network power. It's not about votes, it's about virality. The ability to shift sentiment, steer attention, and move capital with belief. Whether it's Farcaster, Lens, or decentralized media nodes, these aren't just apps. They're sovereign media states.
And where are billionaires placing bets? Identity layers, on-chain credentials, proof of humanity systems. Because in a world flooded with AI, fake accounts, and bots, the new premium is authenticity. If you can prove who you are, you unlock everything. If you can't, you're out of the network.
Vitalik knows this. That's why he's pushing soul-bound tokens, non-transferable proof of who you are, what you've done, and what networks you belong to. It's the foundation of trust in a borderless world, one that doesn't need governments to verify you, just the chain.
And Elon? He's playing the mimetic layer. X isn't just a platform, it's a sovereign narrative engine. With Doge, with Grok, with identity payments, he's testing whether cultural gravity can be engineered from scratch. If X becomes a network country, he owns the printing press.
That's why billionaires are obsessed with narrative sovereignty. It's not enough to have code. You need followers, not in the social sense, in the ideological sense. What people believe is now programmable. What they trust can be tokenized. The future isn't decentralized by default, it's contested.
Which brings us to cultural liquidity, the idea that ideas like assets can be traded, scaled, and reskinned across chains. Billionaires are already testing it, launching social DAOs, remixing identities, and seeding collective mythologies that cross borders and blockchains.
And here's the kicker. These systems won't just reshape digital life, they'll challenge the legitimacy of nation-states. Why pledge loyalty to a flag when you can belong to a network that pays you, protects you, and moves faster than any law can catch?
That's what Balaji meant by the network state. But what most miss is this: you don't need 100,000 citizens. You need 1,000 aligned believers with capital, coordination tools, and narrative leverage. That's enough to fork reality.
So how do you enter this game? Start by watching the edges, where DAOs become schools, where social graphs become capital rails, where influencers become protocol governors. Then ask what part of the system is still centralized and what happens when it isn't.
The 1% aren't waiting for permission. They're creating new zones of sovereignty, digital first, borderless by design, and fueled by belief. If you're not shaping the protocol, you're being shaped by it.
Next, what happens when this hits escape velocity, when the AI, the compute, and the quantum layers kick in? How the 1% are placing bets on intelligence itself.
The next arms race isn't military, it's computational. And the battlefield? It's measured in qubits. While most investors chase AI startups, the 1% are moving upstream toward the raw power that fuels it all. Quantum, accelerators, sovereign silicon. Because in the future, whoever controls compute controls reality.
This isn't speculation, it's already happening. Amazon is funding IonQ. Google has Sycamore. IBM is rolling out 1,000 qubit systems. Thiel and Andreessen are quietly backing stealth mode startups. Not for charity, but for compounding leverage. Quantum isn't just faster, it's unfair.
Quantum computing doesn't just improve speed, it breaks the rules of possibility. Protein folding in seconds, portfolio optimization at global scale, breaking current encryption systems in minutes. It's not evolution, it's detonation. And billionaires are placing their bets now because when this flips on, it's already too late.
The key mental model here is compute arbitrage. Billionaires know that the bottleneck isn't intelligence, it's horsepower. Whoever owns the rarest chips, the coldest data centers, and the fastest simulation layers will dominate everything downstream. AI, biotech, defense, crypto, all of it.
That's why NVIDIA became the most valuable company on Earth. Not because it sells chips, but because it sells permission to think. And billionaires don't want to rent that. They want to own it, control it, multiply it.
Enter sovereign compute, privately owned AI factories, cold storage bunkers for data and model training, billionaire-backed quantum farms powered by renewables hidden in Iceland, Utah, and the Swiss Alps. This isn't paranoia, it's strategy. You can't trust public infrastructure to secure trillion-dollar ideas.
And it goes deeper. The next move? Closed-loop cognition. Billionaires are experimenting with self-improving AI agents trained on proprietary data, running on custom chips, evolving 24/7 with zero human input. Not assistants, not co-pilots, autonomous capital engines.
Some call it recursive intelligence. Others call it God mode compute. Either way, it changes the rules. Imagine agents that write code, audit portfolios, test biocompounds, and optimize quantum circuits faster than any team of humans. Now imagine the 1% deploying them privately.
This is where IQ becomes capital. The game is no longer how smart you are, it's how much compute you command. Billionaires are stacking IQ layers, human, machine, synthetic. They're not scaling effort. They're scaling cognition.
And they're insulating that power. Black site data centers, air-gapped labs, legal jurisdictions with zero AI regulation. Because the biggest risk isn't failure, it's interference. And the richest people on the planet want zero friction between idea and execution.
So what does that mean for the rest of us? It means the intelligence gap is widening. Fast. If you're not training with AI, learning to prompt, or leveraging open source compute, you're falling behind. Not against a person, against a system that never sleeps.
But it's not over. Sovereign compute is still early. And there's asymmetric upside in owning the picks and shovels, cold storage chips, quantum cooling systems, energy infrastructure, edge inference nodes. The billionaires may build the castles, but you can own the bricks.
This isn't a tech trend. It's a power shift. Quantum won't just change industries. It'll rewrite how civilization allocates intelligence, capital, and time.
Next, the ultimate bet. What happens when billionaires stop thinking about money and start thinking about mortality? The longevity thesis, decoded.
For most people, aging is a fact. For billionaires, it's a flaw in the code, and they're rewriting it, quietly, methodically, and with billions of dollars. The longevity thesis isn't wishful thinking, it's a full-stack attack on time. And the 1% are turning life extension into the next trillion-dollar asset class.
Start with the basics: muscle mass, sleep cycles, cellular repair. These are no longer biological mysteries. They're inputs measurable, modifiable, and optimizable. The billionaires leading the charge aren't chasing immortality, they're chasing a 30-year edge, enough time to catch the next wave of tech that pushes it even further.
Brian Johnson is the poster child. He's spending over $2 million a year to reverse his biological age, tracking everything from liver fat to skin elasticity. He's not just measuring health. He's treating it like code: tweak inputs, test outcomes, deploy updates.
And he's not alone. Bezos has poured billions into Altos Labs, a stealth biotech firm focused on cellular reprogramming. Larry Ellison funds anti-aging research like it's national defense. Peter Thiel, he's invested in cryonics. They're not trying to live forever. They're trying to buy enough time to make forever possible.
This introduces a new mental model: time repricing. For the 1%, time isn't just money, it's equity. Each year added to their life extends the compound curve of everything they own. Extend life, and you extend leverage.
Then comes death deferral. Billionaires treat death like a tax bill, not eliminated but postponed. With each breakthrough, senolytics, gene editing, organ regeneration, they push the expiration date a little further. The longer they wait, the better the tools get, and the cycle compounds.
But the biggest shift isn't medical, it's psychological. Billionaires are reframing health as infrastructure, no different than servers, satellites, or supply chains. They're building internal control layers, systems to monitor, model, and manage their biology 24/7.
This is where data-driven vitality comes in. Wearables are just the surface. The 1% are running full-stack biostats, bloodwork dashboards, sleep architecture maps, hormone telemetry, mitochondrial density tracking. Not annually, daily.
Think of it like this. Most people monitor their bank accounts more than their biology. Billionaires reverse that. Because if your body fails, your portfolio doesn't matter. And the ultimate ROI is a decade of extra compound interest in full health.
And this isn't just personal optimization. It's a new industry. Billionaires are funding age reversal startups, longevity supplements, regenerative biotech, organ-on-chip platforms. The goal isn't just to live longer, it's to commercialize the path.
It's already happening. NAD boosters, rapamycin protocols, CRISPR trials, T-cell engineering. And beneath it all, a new philosophy that aging is optional, or at least negotiable.
And here's where it flips. Longevity isn't about vanity, it's about power. Time is the ultimate edge. If you can outlive your competition, you can outcompete them. If you can buy a few more decades, you can compound when others are liquidating.
So how do you apply this as a non-billionaire? Treat health like capital. Run your own dashboards. Track your inputs. Master sleep, recovery, inflammation. And most importantly, stay alive long enough to ride the next wave of biotech breakthroughs.
Because the edge isn't who's younger, it's who's improving. Month by month, marker by marker, asset by asset. Your body is the first portfolio. Invest accordingly.
Next, what happens when Earth's limits become optional? The billionaire space race decoded. To most people, space is science fiction. To billionaires, it's a spreadsheet, a long-term capex play with infinite upside. While the public watches rockets launch, the 1% are playing a different game, one that's less about Mars and more about margin.
Let's start with the surface story. Elon wants to colonize Mars. Bezos wants Earth to be a residential zone, with industry moved off-planet. Branson? space tourism. But none of that explains the why. Why spend billions now, before space is profitable, before it's safe, before there's a clear return?
Because space isn't about escape, it's about control. It's the last unclaimed jurisdiction. No tax authorities, no regulators, no national borders, just physics. And the first ones there get to write the rules.
The first mental model here is escape economics. The idea that Earth-based systems, taxes, laws, fiat currency are becoming constraints. So the 1% are building options, not to run, but to negotiate, from a position of orbital leverage.
Then comes gravity arbitrage. On Earth, lifting mass is expensive. In orbit, movement is cheap. The future of manufacturing, energy harvesting, and even server infrastructure could move above the stratosphere. You get 24/7 solar. No zoning laws, no geopolitical friction, just throughput.
That's why Bezos built Blue Origin, not for Mars, for orbital infrastructure. He knows the real money is in the middle layer, the low Earth orbit shells where satellites, solar farms, and autonomous factories can run 24/7. Quietly, permanently.
And Musk, Starlink is the Trojan horse. He's not just launching internet satellites. He's building a private communications grid that routes around every country on Earth. No cables, no interception, just encrypted sky dominance. It's sovereignty as a service.
Think about that. A billionaire with a global ISP, powered by rockets he controls, with no national oversight. Now pair that with AI, robotics, and energy independence. That's not a business. That's a parallel civilization stack.
It's already started. Astra, Rocket Lab, Relativity Space, all backed by billionaire capital. They're betting on a future where nation-states lag behind in orbital rights and capital outpaces regulation.
And they're not just building for glory. They're building off-planet banking, data vaults, server infrastructure, materials extraction, even human reproduction labs. Why? Because whoever gets off Earth first gets to define what human even means next.
This is the core of off-planet sovereignty. The power to opt out of terrestrial control structures, to create systems of law, finance, and identity that float above enforcement. The space race isn't about rockets. It's about replacing the rulebook.
And here's the twist. Space isn't just the destination. It's the leverage. The mere possibility of exit gives billionaires leverage over Earth-based systems. Want to tax me? I'll route through orbit. Want to regulate me? I'll host my servers on the moon.
It sounds insane until you realize that every new frontier was mocked before it was monetized. Railroads, oil, internet, crypto. Space is just next in line, and the 1% are already boarding the train.
So where does that leave us? Most of us won't board rockets, but we can invest in launch infrastructure, satellite ecosystems, orbital compute, and the assets that power this quiet revolution. There's asymmetric upside in owning the rails of ascent.
More importantly, think like an optimizer, not a passenger. Watch where billionaires are planting flags. Look for legal voids, jurisdictional gaps, unregulated zones, because that's where the next empires will rise.
Next, our final segment. What this all means for wealth, identity, power, and your next move. That's a wrap on the Billionaire Playbook 3. In this final chapter, we decoded how the 1% are future-proofing everything, owning compute, extending life, building sovereign AI, and preparing for orbital escape. These aren't predictions. They're systems already in motion.
Playbook I revealed how billionaires think, decision models, wealth compounding, risk psychology. Playbook 2 broke down how they scale, real estate, timing cycles, influence, exits. And now Playbook 3, it shows where they go next, beyond biology, beyond borders, beyond nation states.
If there's one takeaway, it's this: the future isn't arriving equally. But the mental models, the asymmetric bets, and the sovereignty blueprints are now in your hands.
Subscribe to Mindset Frontier AI on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Follow us on X for elite mental models, billionaire psychology, and decision frameworks that scale. Share this episode with a friend and help us hit 10,000 downloads to build the sharpest mindset community online. We cover wealth, focus, and strategic growth across 4 series, all grouped at financefrontierai.com. And if you've got a founder story or mental framework worth sharing, we may feature it in a future episode. Just head to the pitch page and submit.
And don't forget, sign up for the 10 Times Edge. It's our weekly newsletter packed with billionaire habits, AI productivity tools, and top-tier mindset strategies for exponential success, only at financefrontierai.com. This podcast is for educational purposes only, not personal advice. Always do your own research and consult qualified professionals before applying any strategy.
Mindset evolves, pressure compounds, and even the best systems fail without execution. Treat every insight like a test. Run it, refine it, and make it yours.
Music in this episode, including our intro and outro track, Dreaming On Instrumental by Nefex, is licensed under the YouTube Audio Library license. Full details can be found in the episode description.
Copyright 2025 Finance Frontier AI. All rights reserved. Reproduction or redistribution of this content without written permission is strictly prohibited.
We do it.